I didn't expect to be saying this, but I'm here with a book haul, which is not something I plan to do anytime soon. I recently did a Christmas book haul talking about all the books I got for Christmas and before Christmas, and then I plan to do a follow-up video around my birthday, which is July. However, I've gotten so many books in the mail, so many things I want to highlight, gifts, somewhat expected, some really not expected, and the generosity is insane. And so I really wanted to do a follow-up video as a thank you and a way to really show my appreciation for those that sent books my way. Some of these books you might have seen if you follow one of my good friends on YouTube, but I promise I'm going to talk about them in a way that again will hopefully bring more information to the conversation, more about the books as I slowly plan to read through them all. So if that sounds good, let's get started. First, let's start with the smallest category, and that is books I bought myself since Christmas, and I only have one here, and that is from my used bookstore where I used book credit to purchase this, and that is City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. I've had my eye on this one for quite a while. I technically have started and stopped reading it before, and it's a book that I really think I'm going to love. I just think I need to be in the right space. I know it is an urban, metropolitan style fantasy book that is centralized around the law of the land, and that is part of the story. It's supposed to be quite different than some of his other books like Founderside, which are a lot more action-packed, and instead this one is again a bit quieter, slower, character-driven, and it's a kind of really smart fantasy that I want to be into. So I did end up picking up a copy. It wasn't the cheapest. I think it was $11 in credit, $10 in credit, which is a lot for a used book, but again, I had credit, which made it free, and sometimes you just want to spend some money without spending money, which is a great reason to turn in your books for credit. So anyway, excited for this. I'm really going to try this year to be a little bit tighter when it comes to my book spending, partially due to my efforts now to want to spend more money in Canadian industries and really focus on shopping local, which is a little bit tricky when it comes to books. So we're going to see how that evolves as the year goes on. I'm still figuring out the specifics of that, but in general, I really want to focus on saving money this year. But this one, very excited for. I'm looking forward to reading it, hopefully doing a review for you all. And if I like it, of course, I do want to read the next two books in this trilogy. Now let's talk about books that were sent to me as a surprise. The first one is Red X by David Dumchek. This is a book that has been on my wish list for so long. I read this book when it first came out. I actually got a review copy and then read the audiobook, and it's one of my all-time favorite horror books. It's by one of my favorite authors, David Dumchek, and I'm really excited. It also works for supporting local authors because he is Canadian. And this story I've talked about before. It's a horror story set in, I believe, the 1980s of Toronto, where there was a lot of men who went missing, specifically gay men, and this book really takes a twist on that, potentially introducing a supernatural element. It also breaks the fourth wall. It's very meta as the author injects himself into the story in the most fascinating way. It's again one I've read over and over again because I always get more out of it each time I read it, and I didn't have a copy of it. I think the cover is amazingly gorgeous, and again, really in my efforts to support authors that I love, especially those that are perhaps not the blockbuster best-selling Brandon Sandersons of the world, I really want to put my dollars, or at least my efforts of spending, towards them. I didn't end up buying this one, so it's a huge thank you to Alex who sent this my way. Did not expect that, and I'm not quite sure who you are, Alex, so feel free to drop a comment down below if you want to identify yourself. I want to give you a personal thank you because this was completely unexpected. I was feeling very anxious the Saturday that this showed up in my mailbox, and it put a big smile on my face, and I'm definitely going to enjoy and read this over and over again. Next up, we have Pan's Labyrinth, the book adaptation or co-written book that went alongside the horror movie that I absolutely love. So I had watched the movie already, and then I went on to read the book. However, I just read it as an ebook through my library, and again, it quickly became a favorite book. It's possibly going to show up on some of my favorite of the year video list, and so I was really surprised and thrilled when it showed up in the mail. This came from my good friend Chris, who sent this my way as kind of a belated Christmas wintry type gift, and just very thoughtful. The individual, they don't have a social media account for me to link you to, but I'll say that they are brilliant, and again, thank you, Chris, for sending me this. And in terms of the edition, I had no idea. It's incredible. It has these pictures in it. Even the pages that don't have pictures have these beautiful images on the side. So there are these drawings of the woods, and it all ties in so well with the story. This is fairy tale horror, historical horror. It's dark, it's messed up. I love the movie, and it's so great when the book and the movie are fantastic. Both are worth consuming, and I'm so happy to have a copy because I immediately want to reread this as well. And I also received a copy of Monstrous. This is the first volume in a horror fantasy graphic novel series that I love. I've really been enjoying enjoying collecting graphic novels, and this is one I've really wanted to get. I was talking about in my Christmas book haul just how much happiness comes from having those visual stories in a physical form. There's something just really enjoyable about paging through them, rereading them, and while it's quite expensive to collect the whole series, it's really great to at least have the first book. And so this showed up soon after in the mail. I wonder if that person was listening or watching that video, and I'm so excited and really happy to have this one. The art style in this, I don't want to spoil anything too far in the book, but is absolutely gorgeous. I love this, and I've really come to love this series. I'm actually should be filming or posting soon a video all about graphic novels. It might be out already, and I didn't have this copy when I was filming this, if you're wondering, but this was sent to me by Chris, but I believe a different Chris, so thank you so much, Chris. Again, I'm not quite sure if I know the right Chris that this is, so feel free to identify yourself in the comments so I can give you a personal thank you, because I really appreciate this. It is an all-time favorite of mine, and I'm really grateful to have a copy, so thank you. Hey, so future Rachel here to interrupt the book haul with a very rare cover reveal. Now, I always see myself as more of a book reviewer rather than a book advertiser, so I almost always say no to these opportunities. But when it's one of my favorite science fiction series that is currently being published and a new book is coming out, I did make a rare exception. The series I'm talking about is Dark Theory by Wick Welker. I have reviewed the series before, or at least the first book, as well as the novella that have all come out, and definitely I'm probably overdue to do a full series review, but I like to be further in order to do that. And so in this one, the first book follows this robot who wakes up without their memory. The only thing that they know is they need to find their maker. They end up teaming up with this thief, and the story goes on from there. This one, while it is science fiction, for me has a narrative flair of more sci fantasy, where the story is more epic in nature rather than being oh so focused on some of the hard science. But as I've said before with this author's work, I think it's clear that they have a love for these genres, and it really shines through. This book is huge. I haven't seen the page count on the next book, but I imagine it's going to be huge as well. And as I mentioned, there is a novella, which I have read and reviewed, and I'm just excited to get back to the main story. And so I want to say that the second book in the series will be called Dark Prophet, and this is the cover. Once again, it is gorgeous. I think it fits fantastic with the first book and the novella that followed after. And it's something, when I first saw this author's work when they were publishing a different book, honestly, their cover art really caught my attention. I know, don't judge an author's books by their cover, but I do think it's a smart author to really leverage that as much as possible, because it was first the cover that caught my attention. Then I looked at the synopsis and got really interested in this author's work, and thankfully they have not disappointed once I got a chance to read and review what they put out so far. So needless to say, I'm very excited for this one. I was originally going to give the synopsis on camera, but first off, I am a terrible person when it comes to reading off my phone and actually reading out loud. There's a reason I am not an audiobook narrator. Well, there's several reasons, but if you are interested in checking it out, I'm going to have the Goodreads link. Of course, you are welcome to pre-order the book, but I'm never going to push that. That is up to you. If it's something you want to check out, if you've already started the series or want to go back to the original one, that's entirely up to you. I know that Dark Prophet will be coming out on May 15th. I understand that I will have the wonderful opportunity to have a review copy, so I'm going to give a review, which of course will be unbiased. Even if I have these opportunities, it doesn't affect my ability to separate the art from the artist and really focus on how I enjoyed the story, my experience with it. And so I'll absolutely keep you posted whatever comes, and I'm honestly looking forward to it, so I have a good feeling about it. But again, I'm going to wait till I actually get my hands on a copy and let you know how it goes. Needless to say, it's a series I'm excited about. I understand that Patrick has also done a cover reveal on his channel, so definitely go check it out if you want more details, because I know he's incredibly thorough and probably is more organized than me when it comes to the details and preparation for these type of videos. So again, check him out if you haven't already. Fantastic fantasy and science fiction reviewer. Now, you might have noticed that I don't haul every single review copy that I get from publishers. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense if I immediately am reviewing a book to be talking about it in the same week. I don't want to be repetitive on my channel, but sometimes there are review copies for one reason or another that are really worth highlighting in a video like this. The first one is actually a funny one, and that is this mystery thriller called Spider. And what's funny about this book is that this came out in 2023. I've already reviewed it, but I reviewed a copy that I requested as a supplement for the copy that never showed up when the book first was released. So this came from Datura, and I requested a copy. They said they were sending one, and then it never arrived. So eventually, I think months later, I messaged them and they were very kind to send me another copy. I read, I reviewed it, I really enjoyed it. It's a great character story, a little bit more underhyped than some of the other buzzy bestseller mysteries out there. However, I think I mentioned recently that the Canadian Post has been on strike, or was on strike before Christmas, and finally they got through that, and then they started sending all of the mail that of course got stuck in limbo during that period. And to my great surprise, this book showed up in the mail along with all the other November packages that got stuck. So I don't know where this book was for over a year, because again, this book came out in 2023, and assumingly it's been sitting in some closet at Canada Post for a very long time, and I can't believe it actually came my way. So thank you. I don't always get duplicates, and I'll make sure to appropriately pass it along to another reviewer that can enjoy this one. But what a surprise. I just thought it was really funny. So again, I'm going to give a second plug to this book because they end up sending 2 copies, because again, the first one never made it my way until it finally did, very, very late. Next, I do want to mention an Orbit book, and that is The Witcher: Sword of Destiny. I received a copy of the new hardcover editions. This is the only hardcover from Orbit I've received as part of this series. They had sent me the previous re-releases that tie in with the Netflix version. This is the first time, for me at least, getting one of the hardcovers, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And it's almost worse because they sent me one but not all of them, so now I'm very conflicted in my year of not wanting to spend too much money that I really want to get the other versions. But this one is absolutely gorgeous. If you're someone who appreciates a nicely published book, you have the beautiful inserts, you have some illustrations, there's dandelion there, and various other images in here. And again, the quality of the book, this one is very gifty. I'm already thinking about this for my end of the year gift guide. I think you're going to see this one on the list because I immediately thought of this as just a book to give to anyone who loves The Witcher. And I can't believe I got a copy of Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. This is a book that I didn't know was coming in the mail until I did, and at that point the mail system again went on strike, so this book was stuck in limbo and I didn't think I was going to be reviewing it anytime soon. And then it ended up working out that I got sent the audiobook version, which really surprised me. I don't know whose list I got on because I never get audiobook arcs for major titles, but essentially this is of course the beautiful hardcover edition. I've already put out my thoughts. I very much am mixed about the series at this point, but I know for diehard fans, I honestly feel like if you've gone this far with Stormlight Archives, if you're a huge fan of the series, I do understand you need to keep going. You need to know what happens next. My goodness, this book is really heavy to hold up, so I'm going to put it down now. But I did want to say a special thank you given the fact that, again, I didn't get to highlight the physical copy when I was previously doing my review. And then finally, for review copies, I want to highlight the fact that there are new editions of Murderbots. And so these are paperback editions that are coming out, I believe, in tandem with the new Apple TV show. And so within each edition, it has multiple volumes. So this is All Systems Red, Artificial Condition. This one has Rogue Protocol and Exit Strategy. And then this one is Fugitive Telemetry and Systems Collapse. I think the updated colorations on the covers is gorgeous. And I definitely have gotten feedback on previous videos where I recommend this series saying that the hardcover novellas are just so expensive. I actually haven't looked up the specific pricing on these new editions, but since it goes to paperback, typically it means that if the binding is cheaper, you're going to get a better price or bang for buck, which I always feel good about recommending those as an alternative. And it is a series I've really come to love. I have done a series review that is spoiler free, so if I remember as recording and editing this, I will link that in the card, so definitely go check that out if you want more of my thoughts. I am looking to see how I can incorporate more Murderbot content into my videos in the next coming months, so if you have any ideas how I can redo or re-talk about this series in a way that would be interesting to give this book series a little bit more life and a little bit more attention online, I'd love your opinions down below. But in the meantime, I want to give a heads up about the new editions. Did not know these were coming, and thank you so much. These are gorgeous and are going on my shelf right after filming this. And last but certainly not least, I want to highlight some of the books that Whitney from the Secret Sauce of Storycraft sent my way. If you haven't yet, I definitely recommend checking out her video. I will try to have it linked in my cards and description box. And in that video, first she talks about why she selected the books that she did to send me, and then included in that, I sent her footage of my unboxing. And I want to preface that I was really sleep deprived that morning, and it really showed in my footage. I was trying to predict and guess all of the books that she was giving sending me. She had hints on the covers all wrapped up, and I got a few right, but I got a lot wrong, and I made some really dumb guesses. And yes, I recognize now that what I read as mustard read was probably a must read, which makes way more sense than her recommending me books about condiments. But that was my mental state, so forgive me. Hopefully it's a fun video. I purposely tried not to edit out my flubs and mistakes and just go with it and give you the raw footage because I thought it was kind of funny, even if I made myself look a little bit dumber than I should on camera, at least when I'm going to share it with the internet. But anyway, I'm going to share some of the books here. Again, I'm assuming a lot of you have watched that video already, so I'm going to try to provide an additional perspective, a little bit more backstory on some of these books, my opinions on them, which I have not read yet. And so hopefully, again, even if you watched that video, hopefully this is still interesting. And if not, you can click off the video and we'll talk again soon. Let's get into this. First, I want to highlight the one book in the box that I had already read, and she knew that, so it wasn't something that was a mistake. And that's the fact that she sent me a copy of The Dark Forest. I love The Three Bob Problem and its sequels, but I only own the first book, and she knew that. And so she found another copy and sent it my way. So all I need is the last book, which I'm not throwing out to the internet. I'm just saying I need the last book to complete the trilogy, but really grateful. This is the same size and edition as the last one, so it's going to look great on my shelves. Definitely a series I want to read, and as Whitney knows, I'm someone who, when I have a book I like, I actually love owning again the books that I have already read because I know I like them and I will read them over and over again. So a lot of people tend to buy books they haven't read for the possibility of their next favorite read and great experience. I just want to own all my favorites, so this was really appreciated as a kind, very thoughtful gift. Beyond that, probably the book I was most excited for, as I showed in the video, was The Snow Queen. This is a classic science fiction book that has been recommended to me so many times. I've mentioned that I want to read more science fiction books that have a cold element to them, with a cold season, and also is by a female author. But this book is really hard to track down. It wasn't in any of my library systems. And again, as someone who has become really quite cautious when it comes to spending my book money, I'm trying to be really cautious and minimal with that. It's one that I've been meaning to buy but never pulled the trigger on, and I really appreciate it. I know it's not the cheapest book to send me, and it's a gorgeous edition. I love this cover, and most importantly, it's really a book that I want to love. I think I'm going to love. And again, I'm purposely holding off reading any of these until this video goes live, but after that I'm going to go crazy, and this is definitely high on my list for books I want to read out of this haul. She also sent me a copy of All You Need Is Kill, which is a short Japanese novel. It's a piece of science fiction that is also military fiction, something that Whitney really likes. I'm a little bit hit or miss when it comes to that, I will be honest. And she made a reference in the hints around this book that it involved Tom Cruise. I have not seen the movie. I had no idea that the movie had Tom Cruise in it, so I was mistakenly thinking that this was somehow The Lost Samurai, even though that is definitely not a science fiction book. And so I'm curious about this one. I love the fact that it's translated. I would like to read more translated science fiction, and she really likes it, so I'm hoping it'll connect with me as well. Again, it's a pretty short read, so I don't have an excuse not to pick it up soon. I'm also grateful to have a copy of Ubik by Philip K. Dick, and I should preface, in that video I said, oh, I haven't read Philip K. Dick before, but then I also referenced the fact that I have already read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. I recognize that that is by the same author, and I feel like that is the one book that everyone reads by him. Unless you are a diehard science fiction fan, you don't really read anything else by him, and there's several books by him I want to read. Probably the one that's highest up on my interest is The Minority Report. I have seen the movie, which I think is with Tom Cruise. Is Tom Cruise the unfortunate connecting theme in this video? That one I'm interested in just because I remember really liking the movie when I was younger. Don't judge me, I just liked a good thriller at the time. But this is one that is very beloved and well known, but not one I know lots about. Certainly I'm now going to go to this one next as my next Philip K. Dick book, just because it's available to me. And I'm really glad that I'm allowing myself to read the shorter books this year, because Whitney is absolutely right. I passed this one up just because I was trying to read all the big books first, and it meant that, especially when it comes to science fiction, I was passing over a lot of the really important iconic classics, because in terms of sci-fi classics, they tend to run short, and they always end up on the bottom of my TBR for no good reason. Next we have The Sheep Look Up by John Brunner, and this is a piece of climate fiction. It was the first book I unboxed in the video, and it's really one I know nothing about, but I feel like it's a sleeper hit of this box. It's one that Whitney's very excited for me to read based off my taste. I hadn't heard about it at all, so I didn't have a lot to say in terms of reaction other than saying that the synopsis sounded sounded good. So this is one that, in terms of ticking a lot of boxes of things that I like, sounds like I should love it. And I'm always here for an underhyped gem. It's something that I try to bring to the internet, is here are books that you might not have heard of. And so the fact that Whitney is possibly, definitely, let's go with definitely better read in science fiction than I am. I love the fact that she can bring books onto my radar that I haven't heard of at all. And this one, again, has favorite potential. I just don't really know what I'm getting myself into because I'm seeing zero hype on the internet outside of Whitney about this book, so I really don't know any specifics beyond that. Next is one of the few books that I correctly guessed in the video, and that is Sisters of the Vast Black. This is a sci-fi novella that's all pitched as nuns in space. It's one that's been on my radar for quite a while, and again, one that I'm often hesitant to buy because it's short and you don't always get your money's worth per pages, but I'm glad that this is now on the top of my TBR. Finally have the excuse to pick it up, and again, really excited for it. I've had really good luck loving novellas in the past, which I think Whitney knew when she was sending me this. So this one is definitely a 5-star potential read for me. Let's see if it can live up to those expectations. Also, I gotta give a nod for Adrian Tchaikovsky's Cage of Souls. This is one I'm very excited for just because the author, I've read his really big buzzy novels and some of his novellas, and this one for whatever reason just doesn't get as much attention or hype online, maybe because it's a few years older now, but it's one I'm very much looking forward to. The premise, everything sounds right up my alley. And again, this is one that the only reason I haven't read it yet since receiving a copy is because I told myself I would wait till this video got posted and then I would dive into it because I'm so excited here. Next up, we have The Sundering by Walter John Williams, and this is the second book in the space opera series that starts with the Praxis. I really enjoyed book 1, as I talked about in Whitney's video. The only reason I didn't continue on with book 2, which is this, is the fact that it was not available through my library, and so I'm really glad that Whitney has unlocked a sequel that I really would have loved to read, but I was being really cheap about wanting to spend money on it. It was a 4-star series, and because it wasn't an all-time best series of all time, for me, I felt like I couldn't justify the cost. It is now in my hand. I have no excuse not to read it, and it's definitely, in my opinion, an underhyped space opera series, one that I definitely want to return back to. And I think I've got Whitney on board. I think we're going to buddy read book 1 and then go on to book 2 together. Can't wait. Also excited to receive a copy of Roadside Picnic. This again is a sci-fi classic. This one, I'll be honest, I don't necessarily think is going to be an all-time favorite. Just from my personal taste, I have sampled some of the book, but it's also a sci-fi classic that I feel like I should read even if it's not a favorite, because I think it's important to understand the history of the genre, and that's really a high priority for me this year, which again I think Whitney knew, and so I'm really grateful to have a copy. I think this one's a little bit hard to get, or at least maybe just in my library system, and so this is one I'm looking forward to having an opinion on, knowing what it's all about, and so as I see other books reference back to this one, I can see what they're referencing to. I also got a copy of Permutation by Greg Egan, who is known for writing hard science fiction that melts my brain. I really enjoy his books, even if I don't fully understand his books. There's a previous review I did on this channel where I had several people comment that I completely misunderstood everything that the author was trying to do in one of his books, so I'm always terrified to review them because I'm quite aware of the fact that a lot of the concepts that he dissects in his books are well over my understanding of certain scientific concepts, and so I'm terrified to get it wrong. But at the same time, his books are so good that even if I only understand 20% of what he's putting on the page, it is still so enjoyable that I go for it. Even if his books make me feel a little bit dumb, sometimes it's enjoyable to have that experience. Tell me if I'm not alone in that. Then she sent me Consider Phleboeus by Ian Banks, and this is one that, I'll be honest, of the books she sent me, of the really iconic ones, this I'm kind of on the fence about. I softly, quietly DNF'd the second book in this series, the one about games that we actually tried to buddy read together before. She continued on and loved that book and then proceeded to want to read the rest of the series, and I wasn't a huge fan of that. She does want to do a buddy read for this one, but the fact that I DNF'd the second book that everyone says is the best place to start with this author and this series makes me have nerves that this book is not going to go well for me and that it's going to end up as a DNF or a less than stellar review. So if I'm honest, of all the books she sent me, this one is probably least likely to turn up on my favorites of the year list, but I could be proven wrong, and sometimes it's fun to just have you know, the experience going into a book, having a buddy read, and see what happens, because I love to be proven wrong, at least in the case of thinking I won't like a book. And the last book I want to highlight here, which is not even everything she sent me in terms of books, is The Gods Themselves by Isaac Asimov, which I believe is a standalone. I have read a few of his book series before, and this is one that I've seen the cover, I've looked at it online, it looked really cool, but I didn't actually read the synopsis until it was sent for me by Whitney, and it just sounds great. I have high hopes for this one. I also love that it's a Masterworks edition. I want to say I'm collecting the Masterworks, but I have about 4 or 5 copies. I don't know if that really counts as a collection, but I do love this edition. I think that the Masterworks always just have really nice covers, which is not something I can say for a lot of the other science fiction books on my shelves, but regardless, I think I'm really going to love this one. So I want to say a huge thank you again to Whitney, not just for this one, but for everything. I didn't know she was sending me a box. I should preface that. She did give me a heads up, and I of course had provided her with my mailing address, but I thought she was sending me a couple books. I thought 5. And so when I got that giant box in the mail, I was so overwhelmed by her generosity. If anyone can't tell, she is an incredibly generous, kind person. Hey, this is future Rachel popping in here with an outfit change, obviously, because as I was editing this video, I realized that I had 2 more books, or particularly audiobooks, that I wanted to mention that showed up and were unexpected, and because I wasn't physically holding them as I was recording this, I forgot to mention them on camera, but I really do appreciate them, so I want to loop back here. The first one is from William, so thank you so much. This was sent as, I believe, a belated Christmas gift, and you actually sent me a Audible credit, so not a particular book, but rather a credit allowing me to pick out something on the space. And so what I end up doing is using that to get a copy of Out by Natsu Kirino, which I recently reviewed on my channel. So thank you so much. I ended up really enjoying that book, and it was a great excuse to get something fun and also give me access to the catalog for a month. So I really do appreciate that. And I also want to give a quick thank you to Steve, who sent me a copy of Kings of Assassin by R.J. Barker. This is the 3rd book in the series that he has been sending me the previous books on. He's definitely turned me into a fan of this author, nudging me one book at a time. And at the time of recording this, I have not read the book yet, but is on my short-term plans. I will not wait so long because I really enjoyed Blood of Assassins and I want more. So thank you so much for that. Again, I do mention on my channel, which sometimes gets me a little bit of kickback, that I do a percentage of my reading as audiobooks, probably about 25% these days. And because of that, it is a great way to access books that otherwise aren't available. And I really do appreciate that. As a Canadian, I definitely do have my concerns. The fact that I'm obviously using Amazon links for some of the vehicles when people want to send me things. So I am looking for some alternatives, or maybe just pulling back those links altogether for the time being. If you have other alternatives, and again, maybe I just remove those links altogether for the time being. And again, just say a huge thank you to everyone who was so kind to send me a lot of these books, so unexpected. Even, again, with Whitney's books, I knew she was sending a box, but I thought there'd be like 5 books in there. And her generosity just blew me away. Thank you for the audiobooks, the physical books everyone sent me. It's not my birthday, it's not Christmas, and I can't believe I'm doing a book haul. So thank you so much for all of that. If you're new to my channel, hopefully you do stick around and subscribe. You can hit that button as well as the thumbs up if you think I deserved it. You can hit that little notification bell if you don't want to miss a video from me. I will talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.